Douglas Holt had never missed a connecting flight in 23 years of business travel. Not once. He kept a spreadsheet for that. Departure times, gate numbers, terminal distances measured in walking minutes, not the optimistic estimates printed on airport boards. He had a system for everything. His colleagues at the firm called it precision. His ex-wife had called it something else entirely. So when the mechanical delay out of Calgary swallowed 45 minutes he did not have, and the departure board at Toronto Pearson showed his Halifax connection already boarding at gate C-74, Douglas did not run. Running, he had long since decided, was for people who had not planned properly. He walked quickly, purposefully, and arrived at the gate just as the agent was closing the jetway door. "Sir, I'm sorry. The aircraft door is sealed." He stood there for a moment, his carry-on bag hanging from one hand, and looked at the closed door as if looking at it long enough might cause it to reopen. It did not. Douglas turned, found a row of seats facing the floor-to-ceiling windows, and sat down. Outside, his plane was already being pushed back from the terminal. He watched it go. Then he opened his laptop, pulled up his calendar, and began the methodical work of rearranging the next 18 hours. He did not notice the woman right away. She was 3 rows over, sitting not in a seat but on the floor, her back against the wall of windows, her knees pulled to her chest. She was somewhere in her mid-30s, maybe younger. It was hard to tell. She wore a gray fleece jacket that had seen too many winters and carried a canvas bag with a broken strap she'd knotted back together. Her shoes were clean but thin-soled for November. She was not crying. That was the thing that caught his attention when he finally did look up from his screen. She was not crying, and she was not on a phone, and she was not reading anything. She was simply sitting on the airport floor, very still, in the way that people sit when they have run out of things to do next. Douglas looked away. Then he looked back. He had a rule about other people's business. It was other people's business. 58 years of life had taught him that most problems were not improved by the intervention of strangers. He had seen too many well-meaning people make things worse with their concern, their advice, their need to be the one who helped. He was not, by nature, a rescuer. He was an engineer, retired now, technically, though the consulting kept him moving, and engineers fixed problems that were within their area of competence. A woman sitting on an airport floor was not within his area of competence. He went back to his laptop. He booked the 7:10 a.m. flight to Halifax. He emailed his daughter Abigail to let her know he would arrive by noon instead of that evening. He ordered a coffee from the terminal cafe through an app that charged him an additional $1.40 for the privilege of not waiting in line, and then he waited in line anyway to pick it up. When he came back, the woman was still on the floor. He sat down, not in his original seat, but 2 chairs closer to where she was. He wasn't sure why. He told himself it was because the outlet was there, and his laptop battery was at 31%, which was true. He plugged in. He drank his coffee. He did not look at her. "The seats are open," he said after approximately 4 minutes. He had not planned to say it. She looked up. Her eyes were gray, or perhaps green. The terminal lighting made it difficult, and they registered him with a kind of careful assessment, the way a person looks at something they are trying to decide whether to trust. "I know," she said. "Floor can't be comfortable." "It isn't." He nodded and went back to his screen. A minute passed. "Are you waiting for a flight?" he asked. Something shifted in her face. Not quite pain, not quite embarrassment. Something that lived in between. "No," she said. "Not exactly." He waited. "I was," she said. "I had a ticket." It was. There was a problem with it. A booking error. The airline said they couldn't help me until tomorrow morning, and I... She stopped. She pressed her lips together in the way people do when they are deciding how much of the truth to offer. "I don't really have anywhere to go tonight. I thought the airport would be easier than the street." Douglas looked at her steadily. He had learned, over many decades, that the face usually told you what the words were leaving out. What her face told him was that she was not someone accustomed to saying sentences like that. There was a particular quality to the shame of people who had recently become people they did not recognize. A stiffness around the jaw, a refusal to look away, as if looking away would confirm something they were still fighting to deny. He had seen it in his brother years ago. He had seen it in the mirror briefly during the 2nd year after Margaret had left. "What's your name?" he asked. "Penny," she said. Then, "Penny Callahan, Douglas Holt." He didn't offer his hand across the 3 empty seats between them. It would have been awkward. "What's in Halifax?" She looked at him. "My son," she said. "He's 7. He's been staying with my sister since September. I've been another stop, another decision. I've been trying to get things sorted. I got a job in Dartmouth 3 weeks ago. I've been couch surfing." She said the word like she was still getting used to its shape in her mouth. "The booking error. I saved for this ticket for 6 weeks. Douglas was quiet for a moment. The terminal hummed around them. A family with a stroller. An announcement about a delayed flight to Vancouver. The distant beeping of a luggage cart. "How much was the ticket?" he asked. "Please don't. I'm not offering to buy you one," he said, which was not entirely true. "I'm just asking. $312. She said it flatly, the way people say numbers they have counted too many times. He nodded slowly. "And the earliest you can rebook is tomorrow morning?" They said 9 a.m., but I'd have to pay the difference. "The new fare is," she shook her head slightly, "it's more than I have." Douglas turned back to his laptop. He typed for a while. Penny Callahan did not watch him, which he appreciated. She looked out the window at the tarmac lights, at the luggage carts moving in the dark, at nothing in particular. She had the stillness of someone who had been waiting so long that waiting had become its own kind of motion. "There's a seat on the 710, he said eventually. She turned. Her expression was careful. "I have a points account," he said. It was not a complete explanation, but it was the one he chose to give. "I've been accumulating for 20 years and I never go anywhere my company doesn't pay for. I've got more points than I'll use before I'm dead." He paused. "I'm going to Halifax, too. We'd be on the same flight." Penny Callahan looked at him for a long moment. "You don't know me," she said. "No, I could be anyone." "Yes," he agreed. "You could." He looked at her, at the knotted bag strap, at the thin-soled shoes, at the careful way she was holding herself together. "You seem, however, like someone who is trying to get back to their 7-year-old. Something in her face did the thing faces do when people have been holding tension for a very long time, and something small finally releases it. It was not dramatic, it was almost imperceptible. But Douglas noticed. "I don't take charity," she said. "It's not charity," he said. "It's points." He had already started the booking before she answered. He told himself this was efficient, not presumptuous. He had a weakness, he acknowledged privately, for making decisions before he had permission to make them. Margaret had pointed this out on numerous occasions. She had not been wrong. He looked up. "You'll want your email address." They did not sit together on the flight. He had not arranged that, whether from deliberate respect for her independence or from some instinct he did not fully examine. He wasn't sure. She was in row 14. He was in row 22. He did not see her board. The flight was quiet. The kind of pre-dawn quiet that belongs to early morning passengers. A half-empty cabin, low lights, people folded sideways in their seats with travel pillows and phone screens dimming to nothing. Douglas watched the darkness below give way to the slow silver of the Atlantic coast, the scattered lights of Nova Scotia towns arranged along bays and inlets. He thought about his daughter Abigail, who had inherited his coloring but her mother's warmth, and who would be awake already, making coffee, watching for his text. He thought about what Penny Callahan would feel when the plane began its descent, and she knew she was 40 minutes from her son. He thought about that more than he expected to. They landed at Halifax Stanfield at 8:43 in the morning. The sky outside was white and low, the kind of November sky that cannot make up its mind. Douglas collected his bag from the overhead bin and made his way up the aisle at the pace of the people in front of him. Penny Callahan was waiting just beyond the gate, standing to one side of the corridor with her canvas bag over one shoulder. She looked different in the daylight, less worn, or perhaps less alone. "Mr. Holt," she said. "Douglas," he said. "Douglas." She nodded once. "Thank you. She stopped. He had noticed that she did this, stopped at the edges of things, as if certain sentences were too large to fit through whatever space she was willing to open. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. I mean, I'd have figured something out." A small, self-aware pause. "Maybe. You'd have figured something out," he agreed. "You seem like the kind of person who does." She looked at him. Then she smiled. A real one, quick and slightly crooked and entirely unperformed. It was, Douglas thought, the kind of smile that appeared only after a long absence. "I used to be," she said. They walked together to the arrivals level, not talking much. He noticed she walked quickly, the way people walk when they have been far from something essential for too long. He didn't try to match her pace. He let her move ahead and followed at his own. At the bottom of the escalator, a woman with Penny's same jawline was standing with a small boy in a blue winter coat. The boy saw his mother before she reached the bottom step. Douglas stayed where he was. This was not a moment that required witnesses. He watched from 30 feet away as Penny Callahan dropped to her knees on the airport floor and held her son. The boy wrapped both arms around her neck and buried his face in her shoulder and didn't move. She was talking into his hair. Douglas couldn't hear what she was saying and did not try to. Her sister stood close, one hand on Penny's back, saying nothing. Douglas picked up his bag and walked toward the exit. He had a text from Abigail. "Dad, I made that lemon thing you like. Hurry up." He smiled at his phone and kept walking. He did not think about Penny Callahan often in the weeks that followed. He was in Halifax for 9 days, long enough to help Abigail repaint her front porch, argue amiably with her husband about the load-bearing wall he wanted to move, and attend his grandson Marcus's indoor soccer game in a recreational center that smelled of old rubber. These were the things his actual life was made of. He had learned at some cost to pay attention to them. He flew back to Calgary on a Tuesday. The flight was uneventful. On a Wednesday evening 2 weeks later, he came home to a small package in his mailbox. It was wrapped in brown paper and addressed in handwriting that was careful and deliberate, the writing of someone who knew they were being read. There was no return address. Inside was a folded card and a small envelope. The card read, "You didn't ask who I was before you helped me. I've been thinking about that. I've spent the last few years learning to be suspicious of people. I had good reasons, but I've also been losing something because of it, some ability to let anything in. You reminded me that not every open hand has a catch. My son's name is Sion. He is, as of last week, enrolled in 2nd grade at his new school, and he told me on the way home that his teacher is actually pretty funny for a teacher. I think we're going to be okay. The envelope has money in it. I know you'll say the points thing. I'm saying, please take it. It matters to me that I give it back. Thank you for seeing me on that floor." Penny Douglas stood in his front hallway with his coat still on and read the card twice. The envelope contained $280 in 20s, not $312. She had not pretended she could return the full fare. $280. He stood there looking at it for a while. He did not put the money in his wallet. He left it on his kitchen counter for 3 days, thinking about it, which was more thinking than he typically devoted to $280. On the 4th day, he put it in a small envelope of his own and mailed it to the children's breakfast program at the elementary school in Dartmouth, whose name he had found with moderate effort online. He included no note. He did not need there to be a note. He thought about what she had written. "You reminded me that not every open hand has a catch." He was not sure he had intended to remind her of anything. He had wanted to plug in his laptop. He had noticed a woman on a floor and said something because the silence had started to feel like its own kind of unkindness. That was all. But perhaps that was the thing about these moments. They did not require intention. They required only that you not look away when the easier thing would have been to look away. Douglas Holt had spent most of his adult life perfecting systems. For scheduling, for travel, for the management of risk and resources and time. He was good at it. He would continue to be good at it. But he had also spent a long time, he realized, treating the unscheduled moments, the delays, the missed connections, the hours that fell outside the plan, as failures to be recovered from rather than as the hours in which something different was possible. He stood at his kitchen window and looked out at the backyard, at the bare November trees and the frost on the grass and the sky that had gone the particular color of pewter that meant snow before morning. He had a flight to Toronto next week. He had a meeting, a site consultation, a dinner with a former colleague. He pulled out his phone and added one item to the calendar block for Tuesday's airport wait. It said simply, "Pay attention." He set his phone down on the counter and went to make dinner.